those levels of temperature and carbon dioxide and then come back again. I put it to you that we have very little evidence to suggest that it is okay to do such a thing. Frankly, we must be nuts. That's the last funny bit in the presentation. So my conclusion about how bad the problem is that it's very, very bad and it's very, very urgent. The temperature, to my mind, needs to rise no more than 1.5 degrees, which is generally lower than that 2 degrees we hear about, generally referencing James Hansen's book when I cover that figure. And to do that, we need atmospheric CO2 at 350, which is less than current levels. And to do that, we need to eliminate coal from the global energy supply as quickly as possible, followed by oil, followed by gas. So the challenge as I see it is absolutely enormous. So you can hop off here if you like. If you disagree with my assessment of the problem, you may not feel the need to be open to a rational assessment of all solutions. But I made it this far and started thinking, got to look at everything. So I thought, let's have a look at some of the other solutions that are commonly proposed for this problem. And I'd like to start with energy efficiency, which is often talked about. For me, energy efficiency gets a really big thumbs up. It's universally supported by the literature. You'll never see anything arguing against energy efficiency is a good idea, and that's for good reason. It's the lowest cost, often negative cost way of getting greenhouse gas abatement. Negative cost meaning it's profitable. So if you look at the far left-hand side of that chart, that's the carbon abatement cost curve for Australia. It's telling you where we can reduce carbon dioxide in the Australian economy and how much it will cost us or make us. So if it's below the line, it's profitable. If it's above the line, it's expensive. The wider it is, the more there is of it, the deeper it is, the more cheaper or expensive. So everything on that far left-hand side there is energy efficiency activities. So that's great. The limitations of it, though, is that, it goes without saying, it moderates the demand, but it doesn't decarbonise the supply of the electricity. And frankly, I think it's very risky to rely on high levels of implementation. If it just needed to be profitable and it would happen, well, we wouldn't have all of those opportunities there. There are significant non-cost barriers to introducing energy efficiency. And I assure you that's the case. In the experience I have with Think Climate, we found some very profitable opportunities for our clients, and even when they like them, they do not happen overnight. They take time, you have to go through gateways. You like to think, well, where is all of this energy efficiency? And the answer is it's everywhere. It's in millions of homes, millions of cars, thousands of industries, hundreds of thousands of businesses, all with their own leaders, cultures, decision-making frameworks. It is not just going to happen en masse. So I find that when people like Ian Lowe talk about how respectable engineering studies tell us we could get by on only 1/4 of the energy, I think that's great, but there is a very big difference between what you show in a respectable engineering study and what is likely to happen in the real world. So for me, any honest strategy is going to have to include energy efficiency, but it's going to need something else as well. So looking at another option, renewable energy. Obviously very popular, and I thought I'd start with wind. So wind obviously is the most market-ready renewable power source, and that's why we're seeing quite a lot of it coming in response particularly to targets. It is growing rapidly. However, I think it's important to try to scale it up, and nothing in this problem is any good unless you try to scale it up to a global solution. So to do that, I thought I'd look at Thanet, which is the largest offshore wind farm in the world recently commissioned. It cost $1.3 billion, that's not cheap. It's 100 towers, 115 metres tall, and the area that's dedicated to it is 2.3 times the City of Adelaide municipality. Okay, that's very, very large. For an installed capacity of 300 megawatts. For those of you who are less familiar with electricity, 300 megawatts is, you know, it's okay. Like it's not too bad, but it's not that big. Now the capacity factor of it, that means how often you're actually getting electricity out of these things, is rated at 35 to 40%. So taking the higher end of that, so 40% of the time they are generating electricity because the wind is blowing, you get about 1 million megawatt hours per year. Obviously you hope that comes when you need it. Now the total UK electricity consumption for 2007 was 345 million megawatt hours per year. So the largest offshore wind farm in the world today would provide about 0.3 of the annual energy consumption for the UK. I don't think that's enough. I think scaling that up to a global scale is impossible. Moving on to have a look at solar power, for example. I've now done the same thing with solar, and I've gone to find the biggest and best that I can. So what I have here is something that is proposed, it's not even constructed yet. 1,000 megawatts, so we've upped the size of this, and it's going to cover 24 square kilometres in California, a very, very sunny place. This one, however, is going to cost between $3 and $6 billion. That's a lot of money. Production expected by proponents that they're reporting to the regulator is 2.1 million megawatt hours per year, which gives it a capacity factor of around 24%, not that high. That's about 1% of California's total annual electricity consumption in 2005. Again, I put it to you that that's not quite good enough. And the way these projects work, you're always going to go with the best location first. Every location from here on out is going to be somehow inferior to the one before it. Less sunny, not as close to transmission infrastructure, etc. So I put it to you again, solar is tremendous, but it's not quite ready for the size of the problem. Geothermal is another one that we hear a lot about in Australia. I'll better give this one fairly quick treatment. There is a massive potential resource, but this is at very early stages. There are ongoing technical difficulties, and it's a very long way from where we need the electricity. And it's been having a pretty rough go just lately. Frankly, it's new, it's technically difficult, and it's unproven, and it would require a huge investment in transmission infrastructure. It's just not ready. This technology isn't ready for the problem. So my conclusion on renewables is that they do play a role in global energy already, and it will increase significantly, but it is coming from a very, very low base. It should be supported, it should be applied where the conditions indicate that it should be, in a level playing field situation. However, it has inherent limitations that have nothing to do with our attitude towards it. They're diffuse, or they're intermittent, or they're very location specific, or potentially all of the above. They're costly, and I believe they are impossible to scale up globally to meet the challenge. But perhaps more to the point, even if I'm wrong on that last point, I'm not prepared to take the risk. And I think that's critical. Last, coal carbon capture and storage. Again, I'll give this one reasonably quick treatment, but the references are out there to support it. It is unestablished at any realistic scale. It is as expensive or more expensive than other low carbon baseload generation. Certainly more expensive than the baseload generation, but it's as expensive or more expensive than renewables. It fails to capture all the greenhouse gases involved by a long margin, so it's doing the job incompletely. And it would prolong what we have the other problem with coal, massive mining impacts and the other pollution impacts of coal. As James Hansen said, we have to stop trying to put lipstick on a pig. It's not going to work. There's a range of sources to back up those, that synopsis of carbon capture and storage. So my conclusion on the non-nuclear solutions are that if what we're trying to do is decarbonise the world's energy supply as quickly as possible, beginning with coal, carbon capture and storage has next to no place in some specific situations and applications that may have on it. Energy efficiency certainly has a contribution to make, as does renewable energy. But on their own, renewable energy efficiency and renewable energy sources cannot meet the challenge in the necessary time frame, or I would say again, it is too great a risk to assume that they can. Yet that is the solution that keeps being put to us time and time again by those who would not like us to look at nuclear energy. Energy efficiency plus renewables. Put it to you that I won't do the job. So, we're at our next stop. You can hop off here. If you disagree with my assessment of those other solutions, you may not choose to continue the journey to have a look at nuclear power. I, however, made it this far and was feeling desperately uneasy that I was about to have to go into territory that I didn't actually want to go into, which is nuclear power. To look at it, is it smiley faces and beautiful French vistas with sunflowers, it would appear, or is it, you know, evil megalomaniac cartoon characters and leaky, rusty barrels of radioactive waste? I don't know, but I had to start looking and finding out. So can it help, and are the drawbacks acceptable in the face of this crisis? Well, what I did was I assembled all the reasons that I didn't like nuclear power and decided that I had to take them apart. And what they were is that it's dangerous. That nuclear power is dangerous, first of all in the way it's operated, and secondly in the waste that is produced. Secondly, that nuclear power is a direct path to the development of nuclear weapons. Those first two objections are by far and away the biggest ones that I held, the greatest reservations that I had. Thirdly, that although it may look good when you're just making electricity, that across the full life cycle it actually produces lots and lots of greenhouse gas. Number 4, that uranium mining is so harmful and unsustainable. Number 5, that it's too expensive. Number 6, that it takes too long. Number 7, and I'm prepared to admit this, the fact that people I liked and respected at the time were anti-nuclear. And I'm a big enough guy to say that. I'm perhaps less easily influenced today than I was these few